The sea carried him away, but his song always found her. In a small, wind-swept town nestled by the coast, there lived a young woman named Alara. Her world was painted in shades of the ocean, the deep blue of the morning tide, the gray mist of a foggy dawn, and the fiery orange of a sunset over the waves. But her most cherished color was the one she saw in the eyes of a sailor named Finn. Finn was a man of the sea. His hands were calloused from pulling ropes, his skin weathered by the sun and salt, but his voice was as smooth as a calm harbor at sunrise. He didn't have gold or land to offer Alara, but he gave her something far more precious, a song. It was a simple melody, one he'd composed just for her. It spoke of distant shores, starry nights on the open water, and the unwavering promise of his return. Every evening, as his ship prepared to sail with the tide, Finn would stand on the deck, and his voice would drift across the water to where Alara stood on the shore. His song was their secret language, a thread of sound that connected their hearts across the widening expanse of the sea. And she would stay there, listening, until the last note faded into the whisper of the waves. The days without him were long. Alara filled her time working at the local bakery, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the salty air from her open window. But her thoughts were always with Finn, somewhere out on the vast, unpredictable ocean. The townspeople would often see her walking along the cliffs, her gaze fixed on the horizon, as if she could will his ship to appear. Some called her a dreamer, lost in a foolish fantasy. The sea takes more than it gives, old fishermen would mutter, their faces etched with the memory of their own losses. But Alara's faith was as deep as the ocean itself, and she had the song. One evening, a storm rolled in, fierce and unforgiving. The sky turned a bruised purple, and the sea raged, throwing massive waves against the cliffs with a thunderous roar. The wind howled like a mournful beast, and the entire town held its breath. Finn's ship, the North Star, was out there, caught in the tempest. 4 days, the storm battered the coast. When it finally subsided, the sea was eerily calm, but the town's heart was heavy with dread. Days turned into weeks, and there was no word of the North Star or its crew. The shipping company declared the vessel lost at sea, a tragic victim of the storm's fury. The townspeople offered Alara their condolences, their pitying glances feeling heavier than any anchor. They told her it was time to move on, to accept the sea's cruel verdict. But Alara refused. How could he be gone when she could still feel his song in her soul? She continued her ritual, walking to the shore every evening. The air was silent now, no melody drifting across the water. Yet, in her heart, she hummed the tune, a quiet act of defiance against the crushing reality everyone else accepted. She would close her eyes and imagine his voice, letting the memory of it wash over her like a gentle tide. It was her anchor in a sea of grief. One night, as a full moon cast a silver path across the water, Alara sat on her usual rock by the shore. The world felt still and quiet. She hummed Finn's song, her voice barely a whisper against the rhythmic shush of the waves. As the final note left her lips, she heard it. Faint, so faint she thought it was a trick of the wind or a figment of her own desperate imagination. But there it was again, a little clearer this time, a melody carried on the breeze from far out at sea. It was his song. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She stood up, straining her eyes, peering into the moonlit darkness. It couldn't be, and yet the melody grew stronger, note by note, weaving its way through the night air, finding her, just as it always had. It was Finn's voice, weathered and tired, but unmistakably his. Then she saw it, a tiny silhouette against the shimmering horizon. Not a grand ship like the North Star, but a small, battered lifeboat, slowly, painstakingly making its way toward the shore. A single figure was rowing, his movements weary but determined. Alara didn't wait. She waded into the cold surf, the water swirling around her knees, her dress soaking wet. She didn't care. The song grew louder and louder, a beacon guiding him home. It was a song of survival, of hope, of a love that refused to be extinguished. As the lifeboat scraped against the sand, Finn looked up. His face was gaunt, his clothes were in tatters, but his eyes, when they found hers, held the same light she remembered. He stumbled out of the boat and into her arms, his strength finally giving way. "I told you," he whispered, his voice hoarse. This song would always find you. He told her how the North Star had been torn apart by the storm, how he and a few others had clung to wreckage for days before finding the lifeboat, how, lost and adrift, with no land in sight, he had nearly given up hope. But then he thought of her, waiting on the shore, and so he started to sing. He sang to the empty ocean, to the stars, to the moon. He sang to keep his own spirit alive, to fight the despair, believing that somehow, some way, his song would be his compass. He sang his way back to her. From that day on, the sailor's song was no longer just a melody of parting and promise. It became a legend in the coastal town. It was a testament to the fact that some bonds are stronger than the wildest storms and deeper than the darkest oceans. Finn never went back to the sea. He found his harbor in Ilara's arms, and his home in the town that had almost mourned him. And every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they would walk to the shore together. They wouldn't look out at the sea with longing or fear, but with a quiet understanding. And sometimes, if you listened closely, you could hear two voices, perfectly intertwined, singing a simple melody. It was a song of a love that had conquered the sea, a song that had found its way home. This story reminds us that hope is a powerful force, and that the connections we share can be our greatest strength in the darkest of times. It's about holding on to faith, even when the world tells you to let go, and trusting in the invisible threads that bind us to the ones we love. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Tales from the Heart. See you next time.